It's a bit of a whirlwind calendar for you, Eddie. I know it's going to probably calm down a bit for Christmas, but it's back-to-back now, Liverpool, then Manchester. But this one, Conor, Katie, packed bill, lots of talented Scousers on the bill as well, as you'd expect. How up for this one are you?
Really up for it. It's a really good card. We just come back on 2 incredible weeks. Kambosos against Teofimo Lopez, unbelievable fight, Madison Square Garden, and then did MGM Grand the week after for Devin Haney against Diaz. So it's been great, and this is a really big card. Great fight, Conor Benn against Algieri. I think sometimes, it's probably my fault, we hype up these young fighters so much. I see this as a 50-50 fight. Like, I think Chris Algieri has a great boxing IQ. He's here to win. Conor's looked really good, but as I said up there, sometimes against opposition that haven't really come to win but truly believe they can win. Algieri's got a nice little career going for himself in America. Doesn't have to come over here to fight a guy like Conor Benn, and just fancies it. And for a lot of those American guys, Crawler will know, the Brits all love to go to America and have a fight. Those guys look at British boxing and go, I'd love to go and fight in England. So at this stage in Algieri's career, this is a great night for him, and he's thinking, I beat Conor Benn, I'm right in the mix.
Ed, I was going to ask that. Is the nerves with you in the 2 main events? Because we know what's at stake. After him next year, it seems common knowledge, the fight for Katie Taylor, biggest fight in the women's game that can be made. And with Conor, like you say, you can see the confidence Chris Algieri is saying, and there's some huge nights for him next year. Is there a bit of nerves from you there, genuinely?
Definitely with a Katie Taylor fight. With Algieri, I've watched him. I was actually going to say up there, he won't know this, but when he boxed Provodnikov, right?
He was there, wasn't he?
He got battered, right? It's on the Brian Rose card,
yes,
wasn't
it? Yes, it was, yeah.
And Brian Rose, unfortunately, got battered as well against Andrade. Anyway, I left after 3 rounds because he was getting I think you might have left.
I did, both did.
And we all left, and we were
I didn't tell Chris that,
No, I didn't say it up there. But I think because obviously Brian got beat, so we left with him. And then after 3 or 4 rounds, he was getting battered, and I just left and went. And then I saw it on the thing saying, he's won. He's got great staying power. He's very, very tough. He's got a really good boxing IQ. He's in unbelievable shape, right? Unbelievable shape. And he's just, he's a good fighter. And as I said, he's not an idiot. He's very smart. He's a pundit. He's an analyst. He's watched Conor Benn, and there are loads of holes in Conor Benn, loads. But he's also ferocious, tough. He punches very sharply as well. And there's holes in Chris Algieri. But he looks at this and says, I'd much rather fight Conor Benn than Boots Ennis or Virgil Ortiz. And by the way, he's right at the moment. Yeah. So they're looking at this, and Keith Connolly's manager, who's got Danny Jacobs, they're all flying in because they fancy it, and they are. But Conor, this is going to be a fight where he just has to be a little bit patient, not go in. He was a bit gung ho against Granados, but Algieri's not going to do what Granados done. Algieri will move, but he'll move in and out of range. He'll stay in a pocket. He'll move again. Granados just ran, and it was awful to watch because he felt a bit of power and thought, actually, I'm just going to get on my bike. Algieri will do a little bit of both, and I'm very nervous about that fight. Katie Sharapova's, she's not an unknown, but she's like 18 wins. She's the mandatory. She's brought about 40 people from Kazakhstan, mostly government officials, which is a really bad sign. Do you know what I mean? She's got like 200,000 followers on Instagram.
We don't know whether she's doing an Andy Ruiz.
We were talking about this.
Playing the idol role.
There's a definite dark side to this girl, and her trainer, they haven't stopped complaining the whole trip, right? The hotel's cold. They can hear a road on the side. She's not in the same hotel as Katie. So they're on edge, but they're really taking this very seriously. And Katie Taylor, I guess, sooner or later, Katie Taylor will get to the point where she will start to get a little bit old, and that's what everyone's hoping. But everyone that turns up against Katie Taylor, as this girl said, she's my idol. I can't believe I'm fighting her. And all they've got to do, when you have an undisputed championship, a bit like Kambosos, not quite undisputed, but that's another debate. But you get one guy who just streams in and wins them all. Do you know what I mean? And in this case, a girl who can basically Sharapova, who's not really figured in World Championship boxing, one win wins every belt in the division. Jessica McCaskill did it against Brackhouse, who for years has been building them up. When it's undisputed, it's just you just walk in and take all the belts, and
she can't do that though. He's booked his flights to
MSG
for Katie Serrano.
It's going to be a cracker. It's going to be a cracker.
She's got to win.
That's why this fight is so nerve-wracking, because you've seen it recently with fighters, sort of Teofimo, talk about Haney and all this stuff, and then you saw it with Terry Harper, Michaela Meyer, big undisputed, and Baumgardner comes in, and even Kiko, like anything can happen in boxing, and that's going to be a tough fight. Two really good fights. I like Hank Lundy against Robbie Davis Jr. because, you know, Robbie Davis Jr. has showed vulnerability, and Hank Lundy will prey on vulnerability. Any mistake, he's a really sharp counter puncher. He can punch a little bit himself. Quite small compared to Robbie Davis. I mean, Robbie Davis, Hank was a 135, but Robbie is a big 140. But he must win, and he's got to do it in front of a big crowd in Liverpool and his own people. You know, it's going to be an interesting fight.
Just a bit of housekeeping, Eddie, because there's certain things we just always have to ask you. You know the drill. But Dillian Whyte, where are we?
So the fight's now been ordered, which is great news, or negotiations have been ordered. There's a few bits that are to be agreed, which is the split. That's the most important thing. When you're negotiating a fight, if you don't know the split, it's very difficult to know what you're negotiating. That will, you know, I said to Maurizio Suleiman in Vegas, said, what's the split? Being decided through the arbitration and legal process. Now, if it's 55-45, which we're pushing for, or it's 80-20, which Top Rank are pushing for, we're not going to agree to a deal down that end because we want, you know, we don't know what it's going to be. So I don't think a deal will be reached before purse bids are called. You can still do a deal after that, but until you know what you're negotiating, it's very difficult to agree that deal. But certainly that fight looks like it's next for both men.
Obviously, the other thing we've got to ask Ed, is it true? Can you confirm that AJ is in talks to possibly step aside?
No, he's not. I mean, I saw a number of 40 million. It's not, and now that becomes kind of irrelevant, that conversation, because of the WBC ruling. He's never been in any conversations. I've had conversations with a couple of people who have discussed a concept of where AJ has a comeback fight, Fury and Usyk fight, he fights the winner. But with the sort of forgot the Dillian Whyte part of that jigsaw. Do you know what I mean? So now that fight's been ordered, kind of all evaporates, and AJ says, no, I like good, because I didn't really want that conversation with AJ, but I would have had it if it was a good, you know, conversation to have. But all he wants to do is try and win the World Heavyweight Championship again. Yeah.
Now, it's a bit of an anniversary this week. You've been to one or two boxing events, I think it's fair to say. Now, with the Hatton Mayweather, you know, it's how many? 14 years. Will we ever see the like again? Will you, as a promoter, ever have?
You know what? Let me interrupt. Will we see that next year in the Garden with the Irish with Katie Taylor?
We will. I mean,
that kind of support.
Yeah, Hatton, like the Hatton support. People sometimes talk about, oh, he's like, you know, you talk about Warrington, who it actually is, mental support. Frampton, you know, you had it as well.
Yeah, I mean, nothing be like Ricky.
No, but the Ricky Hatton, no, you're right. But the Ricky Hatton thing, he's a one-off. Do you know what I mean? You're never going to get... I mean, look, Fury had a lot of people going for the Wilder fight, and AJ would as well, but not people that drink in the pubs with him. That's the difference with Ricky. Ricky was a guy that was on the street with those people. You know, going to Man City, going for a pint, and that's why...
What's changed?
Yeah, no, nothing. But what's changed in boxing is that don't happen anymore. Fighters don't go to pubs and go to football matches. They're in the gym, they're sleeping, they're monitoring their diet. You know, it's all become a little bit too serious because there's a lot of money at stake. So Ricky was a one-off. And we will, you know, travelling support is brilliant wherever it is. And but I don't believe you'll see those numbers again, especially from a lightweight or a light welterweight or what end up being a welterweight. Normally you see that for the big heavyweight fights.
Just on a serious note as well, with the restrictions that Boris Johnson mentioned yesterday, is that going to have any impact for the shows that you've got before Christmas?
No, I mean, I think, you know, on late ticket sales, maybe, you know, all of a sudden people go, oh, you know, but ultimately you're fully vaccinated or you've got a negative test, and that's quite similar to what we've seen in recent times.
And that's on the
Euros,
show next week,
the Euros and stuff like that. Hopefully we come through January and we're back to, you know, just normal entry. But I just think we've got to do what we've got to do, you know, and if you're not vaccinated, you need a negative test.
Just a final one. I know you're busy, but last time we saw you, we threw one in about Khan Brook, which has since obviously been firmed up and come to light. Amir suggested that you did go in big for this.
And nowhere near as what the deal. I mean, can you imagine a scenario? Get this, where Eddie offered me loads more money, but I decided to do this. I mean, talking about Amir Khan and Kell Brook, all they want is a payday. So no, what actually happened was, Kell's dad drove to the Dazn party and showed me the offer they've had and said, can you match it? And I said, not in a million years. But this was actually before I pulled out of that offer and started pushing Conor Benn against Amir Khan, because obviously I don't have Amir Khan or Kell Brook. I wanted to get Conor Benn, the big fight. So I know a lot of people think that I criticise that fight. I don't criticise it at all. I think it's a good fight, but it's just not what it once was. It used to be a 800,000 buy, you know, like stadium fight. Now it's just an intriguing fight between, and And I don't knock them for doing it because good luck to them. You know, they've both decided to have one last little run out for as much money as possible. And but to suggest that they'd take much less money in an offer, yeah, I think you can see through that one.
Well, a pleasure, Eddie. We'll do it again next week. Why not?
Look forward to it.
See you next
All the best.
All right, boys.